Okay. Cool. I did a big marketing presentation before I built this one that tried to cover a lot more. And this one is a really refined that focuses on trying to do the basics first. And once those basics are done, I'll start talking about what comes next, because I think that'll be better to split it up because it was getting quite overwhelming to try to cover, okay, what free marketing options are out, what paid marketing, what should I do with my Amazon book listing? Why is this important? So this is really trying to focus on what I think is the most important thing to do before you look at, okay, should I spend time doing marketing or just keep writing a lot and so on. So I've only done this one a few times. I did it this morning with a few Australians, and we'll kind of see how it goes. And like I said, feel free to jump in or throw something in the chat if you have a question, and I'll pretty constantly read that too. So I think most everybody in here, I have a long background with marketing. I've been running Shepherd since 2021 and talking with 1,000 authors, I would guess, over that time. In my marketing past, I've run PPC campaigns, pay per click, like what you would run on Amazon or Facebook, sometimes on large campaigns up to 40K a month. A lot of word of mouth and guerrilla marketing, which benefits authors since generally they both are helpful when you don't have any money. Um, this presentation will evolve. It's a, learning in progress. Please send me feedback, or if there's something I'm missing, or especially if there's something you want me to cover on paid marketing or something more specific. Eventually, I'm going to try to take this basic one and make others around those topics long term and share them on the website. So just get started. The big goal of this basic book marketing is to give you the greatest chance possible of being read. That's what every author wants, to get some readers who are not friends and family, start getting feedback and see if they can start building a fan base. The second thing I'm going to try to illustrate how to do is to encourage word of mouth marketing to sell more books. And third is to collect and build your fan base, which I believe is the only way forward in order to sell books, which I'll go into more details. So specifically here, I'm going to start by talking about how to get a professional book cover and what that means, how to build a near perfect Amazon bookstore page with a lot of examples and some of the tricks that are working lately. How to encourage readers to leave reviews on Amazon, why that's important, how to encourage readers to buy another book from you, and how to collect your fan base via email. There's probably some of you are already doing all these, and it's going to be a little bit of a review. But what I've found is a lot of authors hadn't seen all this kind of in one place. So we'll see, and you can tell me via email tomorrow. So the professional book cover, I kind of give a terrible analogy. If you're trying to sell your house, having a bad book cover is kind of like, the windows are broken, the yard doesn't look good, that kind of thing. And I'm going to show you one of the worst book covers I've ever seen. I actually bought and read this book, and the book is quite good, but you can see this book cover screams, that somebody made it themselves. It looks very bad. And it's a pity because this book is actually quite good. I met it through a Reddit thread under military sci-fi. And somebody said this has to be the worst cover I've ever seen, but the book isn't too bad. So I want to just give this example as we talk about this, because readers and the testing I've done, readers really use it as a quality check. I think if you look at what you pick out to read, you'll find that's true to some degree. But they really want to see something that just checks the boxes, and even better if it engages them. But at the very least, they use it to see, okay, should I be scared off? Is something wrong here? The other thing that they're really seeing some good data on in studies and so on is that books need to match the genre. So if you are doing mystery books, it helps to keep up with the trends every few years so that your books match what's coming out. And I'm going to just show you an example here as I talk about this. But this is a case study I've shared in the past that Reedsy did on doing new and improved book covers and looking at the improvement it did in sales. And it's pretty well thought out, and there's quite a few of these to back this up. But I want to show you one cover down here. So this right here, this is a mystery book. You can see the cover on the left. This is not a bad cover, but they saw, almost a 2x increase with the right. And you can see this one looks a lot similar to some of the newer mystery books that come out. And I think this is one of the things to be aware of is if your covers match the current trends in covers, it can help them quite a bit because readers resonate with that, and it kind of is another quality check. And I'll share this. If anybody wants this URL again, let me know. But it goes through a lot of these and gives examples with fantasy and some of the other bits. A lot of authors ask me when I'm doing the one-to-one sessions, why can't my cover be unique or different? And you can do that, but innovation usually is something that's a lot easier to do if you already have a fan base and you're selling books every month. There's a lot more room if you're Stephen King to push the boundaries and kind of chart your own path. It's a lot easier when you're getting started to confirm what readers are expecting and build your fan base. So I do want to mention that because I get that question a lot. But it's very important. And I'm sure everybody, kind of knows this, but I like to mention it. The second one that I want to show you today is an Amazon bookstore page. And I can't stress enough how important it is that your bookstore page is perfect, because readers, when they hit your page, are looking for reasons to not buy your book because they don't know you, and it's usually pretty hard to convince a reader to try a new book, especially if you don't have many reviews. So the first thing to make sure is perfect is your book description and the way you pitch the book. So the obvious thing here is spacing. I go into so many authors when we're doing these one-to-one marketing sessions and looking at where they don't have the spacing right, where this line is bumped up against this one and it's just not spaced correctly. The other thing, if you look at your competition on Amazon, a lot of people do this in a bold font. Amazon even lets you make that bigger so that it can draw your attention. I think I lost that example, but I think I find it in a second. But just make sure it looks perfect, and also double check, on international pages. You sometimes have to use a VPN to do that. But if you're selling a lot in Canada or the UK, you need to check those locations as well, because sometimes they can be messed up and you don't know. And if your publisher doesn't give you access to this type of thing, you need to request this from them if they haven't done it correctly. You also want to make sure this is not blurry and it's a high quality image. So let me show you what this person did. This is a pretty big block of text. I don't necessarily recommend that. It's nice. Most readers are scanning, so you want to break it up a bit, but they did do a good job here of integrating reviews. They do a bold line to kind of call attention to it and, grab you. And they went quite long. So I do recommend looking at what people are doing and get a good feel for this, because that pitch is really what pulls readers in. And I really recommend the starting with kind of a log line and bolding it, just because that'll really grab readers. So let me go back here. So let me show you the other thing, social proof, which I will talk about more in the Q&A, but obviously it's very helpful if you remain or have 4+ stars as your ratings. I talk about this a lot, and obviously having at least 50 reviews or even 25 is a great way to start. The data shows that every time you see pretty big bumps in number of ratings, you're going to convert readers more. When a reader lands on your page and they see 50, 25 reviews, they might be a little more hesitant. They're a lot more likely to buy your book if they see 250, 500 reviews, which is unfortunate, but that's kind of the world the internet has made. The other thing I'm going to show you too is editorial reviews. I don't know if people are familiar here. Show you. Editorial reviews are something you can also add to your listing. Here's an example. They actually took one-on-one reviews. These can even be from your beta readers, and they're actually using a emoji text graphic for stars to grab people's attention, because Amazon does let you do this. You also see, I believe, oh, that's the wrong one. Let me show you another example. This is a pretty famous book, but they've done a pretty good job right here. So they have the more traditional, here's what Publisher Weekly said, here's book list, and some other quotes. But I highly recommend using this section. It makes the listing look more professional to readers, and that just helps them feel good about the decision they're, about to make to buy this book. The other thing I want to show you is not something most people are using, and I highly recommend it if you are indie published, and if you can get your publisher to do it, please do. So what this is, and I'm going to show you this one right here. This is an indie published book. There's a section in Amazon called From the Publisher, and it's an amazing opportunity because it allows you to use visuals And you can see right here, it's like this incredible stamp of quality that you can put on your book or your publisher can. And it lets you use visuals, it uses text as well if you want. And you can make this awesome display here that they did. Here's an here's another example from this author. They went with three images and text going across to kind of it instantly makes people feel the mood. And then here's a very, big name book, and what they did here graphically. But there's some great examples under Amazon's documentation on how to do this and what's possible. And I highly recommend if you have the ability to do this or to ask your publisher if you do not have direct access to put this together because it's a fantastic visual piece that makes readers feel like there's a bit of a gatekeeper and this book is high quality. I should try it, which you need all you can get when it's a new book or you're a newer author. Sorry about that. So I highly recommend that. That's a very useful. The other thing to do is always make sure to check that you can preview the book on Amazon. Sometimes that breaks. And always make sure the book series is set up. I've been doing a lot of adding book series lately, and I've been surprised a lot of authors have it reverse ordered or they're missing books from the series. You really want to nail your series down and make sure it's perfect in Amazon because Amazon will market the next book to readers that finish the first one. So, of course, if that chain is broken, it can cause problems. Yeah.
Uh,
So if you go ahead.
sorry, before we move on, because how do you do that? How do I make sure Amazon doesn't do something wrong? I don't have control over Amazon.
Yeah, so in Amazon, you can set up your series. Let me see. You go in their help topics and you can type in book series. Email me if you want the link. But you organize this all in the Amazon backend. If you don't have access, you would have to ask your publisher once you see if it's fixed or not. But for example, the book series pages you can find on Amazon, like here's the one for this book. There's 13 books in the series and it's numbered and everything else. This is all editable on the Amazon backend or your publisher has access.
Oh. I am my publisher, so I don't know, and so I haven't a clue how to do this. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, email me and I can send you, but this is their kind of support area and it's not actually not terrible and they do pretty good graphics for how to do it. So they have, for example, a page right here, and I'll throw this in here on how to start a book series and set that up. Yeah.
Okay,
They
thank
also
you.
have collections, which are like non-sequential. So you can also do collections around, if you do a Regency romance collection where they're not sequential, but it has a lot of the same characters, they've got some flexibility. Book series, obviously, the best way because they directly market book two to people that finish book one and so on, especially on Kindle. Cool. So if you've done these two things, this is great because you now have a Amazon sales page that's going to convert the most people possible. And this is great to do before you start spending any money to get people to that page or doing any type of marketing work to also drive traffic freely. So that's the whole goal here. If you want to get really advanced, the other things you can do is a little bit of split testing in the sense of you try out a new book cover for 30 or 60 days and see if it impacts sales. You try out a different pitch or book description and see if it makes a big impact over the next 30 days. Those are ways you can kind of slightly tweak things if you want to really test something different. The third thing I like to talk about is encouraging readers to leave reviews on Amazon. I'm guessing all of us have seen this in books. It's where you ask the readers to leave a review on Amazon. And doing that ethically, you can't say if you like the book. You generally say like, please leave a review. It really helps authors. I'm seeing some authors start to try this in the middle of the book, which is I don't have any good data on that. Some people do it at the start as well and the end. One thing that can help a lot is if you're doing more of a graphic in the ebook. So it's a picture, it has a small picture of you, and the font's really big for asking them to leave a review and explaining how much it helps authors and how much you appreciate it. Um, Amazon will prompt people to leave a rating, but I think it's also good to make that type of request as the last page after the last chapter to try to harness those. Not only does this help you with the algorithm, the more reviews, the more other people are going to say, okay, there's social proof this book is good. Let's give it a try, even though I've never heard of the author. The other thing you want to do at the end of the book is try to sell them another book, because this is generally the only way that book marketing can work on a paid basis. If you're looking at that model, you want to pitch them the next book in the series. Very easy to include 2 or 3 chapters more in the ebook. If you don't have another book in that series, it's very easy to include, 2 or 3 chapters of another one of your books that's close to that one, or something like that. At the very least, you can also have a list of your books that you think they might be interested to pitch them. But many authors do this. When it comes to paper, obviously there's separate issues over cost and how many pages that will add. But I would recommend doing something at the end to try to pitch them another book, because at that point they finish your book. Hopefully they liked it, and if they liked it, you want to get them into another book, build more of a fan, and make another sale. This is a kind of a big point of mine, which is the only way to win in this current chaotic book market. My belief is that you have to build fans and you have to collect them. That's the only way forward, because each fan you collect is going to help you when the next book comes out and so on. Word of mouth has always been the only way to sell books as well. It's a lot more extreme right now, but that's kind of why you want to collect your fan base, so that when you release your third book, hopefully you have 50 fans on your newsletter, and each book that comes out is just hopefully leading more people to you. So that kind of gets to the fifth one, which is at the end of the book. It's really a good thing to try to get people in a newsletter, even if that newsletter is real basic, such as get notified about my next books. And you see a lot of big publishers are starting to do this and have been for a while. Penguin, I think, does this pretty well. But a lot of authors are having really good luck with incentives. So if somebody just finishes a story, incentivizing them joining that newsletter with a free short story about the character they just learned about and love is great. You can do stickers. There are a lot of different opportunities here that are tied back to the book, but something to help them take that step and join your newsletter. And the reason why I say email is so important is it's the last thing that anybody really owns online. It's the only direct relationship you're going to have with your fan base. Social media can be great, but it's not a relationship you own. And social media is famous for creating these systems for you to use, but then slowly removing your ability to contact your fans. For example, in the early days, Facebook was great for fan pages because they showed your posts to all the people that liked them. But slowly over time, I think now the last study was like 1% of people see those. And uh, that means they're trying to push you to ads. Instagram, in the last study I read, I think about 30% of your followers will see your post. TikTok is quite high right now because it's the newest thing, but it's starting to go down. And over time, they're going to slowly, and they have already, start moving more people to ads in order to get that reach. So you have to be careful there. Email is the only thing you really own. That's why I recommend it so strongly. There's other places, but it really is it. Um, so once
Uh,
you get the, oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering this short free story about the book. I,
Mhm.
I I sell my books at markets, so I try and collect them for my newsletter.
Yep.
But what other ways can you do that free story thing?
So for example, in the back of your book, you can have a page that says go here, sign up for a newsletter, and you can actually pretty easily in the newsletter automate it so that when they join, the system automatically sends them the story digitally. If you're meeting these people face to face, that is a huge, win for building fans because they already know you as a human being, not just as a author of a book they ordered digitally. Is that what you kind of mean of how to do that practically or in the back of the book or what?
Oh, well, my books are all right. I can't add anything to the paper books, but can I add something in the ebooks? Can I?
Yes, you can add something in the ebooks, and then any future books you do, you can remember to add this page both to the paper and the ebooks too, and do that. But yeah, the only other thing, I mean, you could do with the paper books is, slide in a piece of paper at the end or include a bookmark that has this, something like that. Or when you actually sell them the book, you could try right then of, hey, would you write down your name and email, and I'll tell you if I write a next book. You could fill that out. These are all ways you
Mm.
can try to collect that name and email because it is a big help. that you're meeting them face to face because you're going to be making such a stronger impression. There's a greater chance of
Yeah,
building a
it's
fan.
my best selling. Yes. Thanks.
Yeah. So I kind of just went through kind of why it's important. So the whole point here is that's the basics. If you've done all this, you have the greatest chance to convert them into a buyer. You have the greatest chance of getting them to leave a review. You have the greatest chance to sell them another book. And hopefully you are pulling a small percentage of your readers into your fan club, and you have their emails. So this is just if you do this with every book, it can keep building as you send those books out there. And that's what I kind of consider the basics because you'll be in good shape if you do those things. And that kind of gets to the bigger question, which is what comes after the basics. And this is the challenge I faced when I first did this presentation. This is a really big question, and I'm trying to hone in on it with three things, which we'll talk about a bit in QA. But the first one is obviously, do you want to do marketing? Because I talk to a lot of authors and they're feeling stressed, or their soul is dying because they hate marketing and they don't want to do it, but they feel like they do. You don't have to do marketing. If you do those basic things and just keep writing and improving your craft, there are plenty of authors that succeed, and full-time authors who that's what they do. They built their fan base. They got lucky with one or two books. It got mentioned, and people read their back catalog, and things just keep growing and growing and growing. So I like to say that because sometimes people can get a bit stressed over this. It is harder to do, but it's still very possible and it's still very fun. The second question that's really important is what is your goal as an author? Because this really determines what type of marketing you're going to do. So, do you want to be a full-time author? Do you want to be a part-time where it covers the mortgage? Is it a fun hobby? You just do it because you love to read? Is it part of your career? All that type of thing. So that's a really important question to answer. And then lastly, the big question here is just how will you get readers to that book page you made on Amazon? And I can't stress enough just picking one and sticking with that because it is a very overwhelming world right now in terms of where you can play. Shepherd is trying to make it easier. That's what I'm trying to do long term. But right now, I tell authors we're one of 100 things, and I'm hoping in a few years we're three or four of 100 things. And the other things you have to do is usually pick one and try to just make that work for you. So I'll share a couple examples here. There was an author I talked with who does romance, and she's doing really well on TikTok. She already liked TikTok, so it doesn't drain her will to live. She loves making short form videos, and she's killing it on there. That's all she needs to focus on, besides the basics. And that's how she makes her living. Another example I will show you here is this author right here. I just read this book. It's a fun adventure read. It's a new genre called Lit RPG. I've been trying out because it's a little outside my norm. This author started on something called Royal Road. Royal Road is one of the platforms that allows you to share a chapter at a time of your book with fans and see what happens. This person, shares each chapter. People read it, they give feedback, they give comments, they rate it, and slowly, you can see the stats here. It's had 140,000 views. He's got 3,500 followers. 1,000 favorites. On his Patreon, he has 1,700 members. Now, those are for free, and some are for paid. We're not sure how many. But doing this, he's been able to build a fan base because Royal Road is where all the lit RPG people hang out. And because of that, he published the book for free, chapter by chapter, built his fan base. And then at some point, he went and polished it up, got an editor or edited it himself, and released it on Amazon. And as you can see, it's got 700 reviews. I bought both copies and it was good. So this is one example of where an author is writing, improving their craft, and has picked Royal Road as the way that they're using to meet readers. So that's an example of kind of the impact it can be. Sorry, an example of know your niche because he knows where his people are hanging out. So that's why it matters so much and why it's somewhat hard to do this next presentation. Because if you're a romance author, it even gets down to, okay, are you doing reverse harem? Are you doing all the different subgroups? Are you doing epic fantasy? Are you doing progression fantasy or military sci-fi? Because the people that love those books, there's different places you can hang out. And there's also some genres that are nearly impossible to market, such as memoirs, are very difficult. Um, so that's why this type of bit really gets hard. And so, how do you answer this question? Let's talk about that. I want to recommend this group really strongly. I think I think everybody in here maybe has heard me blog it before, but it's called 20 Books to 50K on Facebook. It's based around this rough principle that in order to become a full-time author, at least fiction, more fiction, you need to write 20 books in order to make $50,000 a year. Now, obviously, that's a very rough rule of thumb. Plenty of authors do it with 10 books and so on. But they're very friendly. They share great advice, and all of them are very driven. So they are all trying to do marketing, which is very helpful. I also recommend trying to find a Facebook group or in some cases a Reddit group. For your genre. So if you write fantasy, there's a lot of great fantasy writer books, or sorry, groups, and they usually have more information on what niches or areas might help. I can also help in some cases, but even I don't know all the little ones in many cases. So that is a little hard. Um, Similar to the Royal Road idea, I'm guessing most people have heard of this one, but this is Wattpad. And this is a similar one where you can, share your chapters and tell a story. A lot of these popping up, but this is a pretty big one. And it's one way authors are kind of changing how they build their fan base early. So, maybe you're doing this, you're making sure the book resonates, you're getting your couple thousand fans, then you're editing it and releasing a paid version on Amazon. And I'll give you one more example that I talk about here. So Royal Road has, and I don't know if anybody's heard about Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's just hit the New York Times bestselling list last week. It is a lit RPG satire. It is one of the best books I read this year. It's probably shortlisted for one of my three favorites, and it's one of the best books I've probably read in the last 5 years, despite the incredibly crazy name. I'll just show you this. So his story is very interesting. He was an artist and he started writing this book, I think, when COVID hit. He released it very early on Royal Road and started writing chapter by chapter. And everybody on Royal Road started liking it and sharing it. And eventually it started, 10 months after he released on Royal Road, he released book number one on Amazon and it started selling. And it did very well. And at this point, he got signed by Penguin last week, and everything else has just been kind of growing exponentially through word of mouth. But he did a really good job of harnessing Royal Road to really get things going. And it's a good example, again, like him, of doing that. And I think even crazier in terms of books is he's probably making around $40,000 a month off his Patreon fans from Royal Road, because this is a slightly different model of selling books. There's where people are becoming fans of the author and getting the book chapter by chapter each week for free. So you're keeping them engaged and so on. So I wanted to share that as an example because there is some interesting things happening in little bits around the net like that. So I'm going to stop there and go to Q&A. If anybody has any questions or anything specific to their book, their genre, I can at least share if I do know of anything in that area.